Do you believe your daughter was murdered?
I absolutely do.
That is Brittany Murphy's father, sitting in front of a camera, looking the world in the eye, and saying the one sentence Hollywood spent 15 years trying to bury. He spent the rest of his life saying it. He died still saying it. And the man Brittany was sleeping next to in the years leading into her collapse, the man who had once been her boyfriend, her co-star, the face on every magazine cover next to hers, has never publicly answered the question that father refused to stop asking.
I think that I had been responsible for so much of my life. And all of a sudden this window opened up where I was safe, I had money, he loved my children.
That is Demi Moore, describing how it felt at the beginning. Safe, loved, watched over. That is the version Demi believed for almost a decade. And then she sat down to write her memoir, and what she put on those pages about that same man, the same man Brittany Murphy had dated 5 years before her, was the most damning portrait of a Hollywood husband published this century. Not allegations, not rumors. Demi's own words, in print, with her own publisher, under her own name.
We're conducting an investigation into the death of Brittany Murphy.
What was the address of the emergency?
1895 Rising Glen Road.
Tell me exactly what happened.
My daughter's passed out. She was dizzy. She couldn't walk right. She's had a cold. Oh my God.
That call came from the same Hollywood Hills bedroom Brittany had been retreating into for years. By the time her mother dialed those 3 numbers, the woman who once lit up Clueless and 8 Mile and Just Married had been pushed so far out of the industry, she'd helped define that most people watching the news that night thought she'd already disappeared years ago. But here's what nobody is connecting. Demi Moore's memoir was published in 2019, 10 years after Brittany Murphy died. And when you read what Demi wrote about life with Ashton Kutcher, and then walk backwards through Brittany's last 7 years, the parallels stop looking like coincidence. They start looking like a pattern. And the pattern was sitting on the public record the whole time. In 2002, Brittany Murphy was 25 years old and on the verge of becoming the biggest female lead of her generation. She had already walked out of Clueless as a cult icon. She had matched Eminem note for note in 8 Mile. She had voiced Luann in King of the Hill for 7 seasons. Industry people described her the way people described Marilyn. That thing you can't fake. That thing nobody teaches you in class. That quality where the camera turns toward her even when she isn't doing anything. She started dating Ashton Kutcher right around the production of Just Married, the romantic comedy they shot together that fall. 2 beautiful young actors falling for each other on a movie about marriage. For the tabloids, it wrote itself. They were on every cover. They walked every red carpet. The relationship lasted roughly a year and a half. And then, very suddenly, it was over. Kutcher moved on within months. By the spring of 2003, he was photographed at a birthday party with Demi Moore, the Hollywood legend who would become his wife. Brittany Murphy, by every account from people around her at the time, was blindsided. The Hollywood machine that had spent 2 years building her up as half of America's young couple of the moment turned its attention elsewhere overnight. And from that point forward, something inside Brittany's career started slipping in a way nobody around her could fully explain.
E.T. uncovers the details behind Brittany Murphy's tragic end.
The 32-year-old who gained fame in movies like Clueless, Girl Interrupted, and 8 Mile.
With questions still surrounding her Hollywood home and the suspicious spouse who died in an eerily similar way.
The official narrative for years was that Britney was difficult. Hollywood whispered the word the way Hollywood always whispers it about women who are no longer being protected by powerful men. Not as an accusation, but as a permission slip. Permission to stop calling her. Permission to stop casting her. Permission to write her out of the conversation. Whatever happened in the back rooms after she and Kutcher split, the result was visible in her IMDb page. 8 Mile had been 2002. Just Married had been 2003. By 2005, she was doing direct-to-DVD. By 2008, she had been fired from a Sylvester Stallone film mid-production with the studio, publicly questioning her behavior and her health. She was 30 years old, 2 years from the bathroom floor. This is the part that matters. This is the part that, until Inside Out was published in 2019, nobody outside of Ashton Kutcher's tightest circle had the full picture of. And it is the part Demi Moore wrote herself, in her own voice, naming names, describing scenes, attaching dates. She wrote about how the relationship started, how she'd felt, in her words, like she had a second chance at being young. She was 41. He was 25. She wrote that he made her feel safe in a way she had never felt. And then, page by page, she walked the reader through what that safety actually cost her.
It wasn't something he feared. He seemed to be comfortable with the enormity of the ex-husband. I mean, I felt like I was not coming with baggage. I had punk.
The first thing she described, and this is from the memoir, page after page, is what happened to her sobriety. Demi Moore had been sober for nearly 20 years when she met Ashton Kutcher. 20 years. That is not a casual sobriety. That is a sobriety you protect like an organ. And in the memoir, Demi writes that one night, over dinner, while drinking a glass of red wine, Ashton looked at her and questioned whether alcoholism was a real thing. Alcoholism was a real thing. He suggested it was about moderation. He suggested she could handle a glass of wine. She wanted to be the girl he wanted her to be. So she took a beer from the minibar that night. And she has written that she watched her own 20 years of recovery start unspooling in real time. Because a man 15 years younger than her, with no understanding of what addiction is, decided he wanted a different kind of wife, and she decided she'd rather be that wife than be sober.
I'm a happy type person. I smile a lot.
That clip, that line about smiling, sits underneath the entire memoir like a fault line, because the next thing Demi wrote about was the night in Mexico. She had been drinking with him. She passed out. She woke up the next morning with her head against a toilet bowl, and Ashton showed her a photograph he had taken of her in that state, smiling about it, treating it as a joke. Demi wrote, and these are her words on the page, that what looked like a joke at the time was actually shaming, that she now understands she was being humiliated and didn't see it. Then came the pregnancy. Demi was 42. They had been trying. She made it almost 6 months, almost to the line where you start telling everyone, where the baby has a name, where the nursery is real. And at a routine ultrasound, the heartbeat was gone. She wrote about that loss with a kind of devastated specificity that nobody who has not lived through it can manufacture. She wrote that she lost a piece of herself in that exam room and never fully got it back. Then came the threesomes. This is the part that, when the memoir came out, every gossip column ran with for a week. Demi wrote that she did not want them. She wrote that she agreed to them because she thought it was what would make him stay. She wrote that she convinced herself that being the fun wife required her to do things her 30-year-old sober self would have walked out of the room for. And she wrote what happened next, what those threesomes were eventually used for. She found out he had cheated on her at Danny Masterson's bachelor party in San Diego. Not from him, not from a friend, from a Google alert. She had set it up on his name, the way millions of people set them up on their own names, and the alert went off, and there it was. And when she confronted him, he told her, and again, this is from her book, that because they had brought third parties into the marriage, his cheating wasn't really cheating. The threesomes she had agreed to in order to save the relationship had been converted, by him, into the moral cover for ending it. That is what Demi Moore put on the page about Ashton Kutcher in 2019. Every line of it sourced to her own publisher, her own name, her own voice. None of it has ever been disputed by him. Now hold all of that in your head and walk back 5 years. Before Demi, there was Brittany. We do not know what Brittany Murphy and Ashton Kutcher's relationship looked like behind closed doors. Brittany is not here to write a memoir. She did not get to 42 years old and the safety to publish. She got to 32 years old and a bathroom floor. But what we do know is that whatever happened between them, when it ended, Brittany's career did something that careers don't normally do. They don't usually fall off a cliff at 25, not when the actress in question has just opened the year's biggest rap film, not when she's voicing one of TV's most beloved characters, not when she's the face of a major romantic comedy that just hit theaters. The official line was always that Brittany was difficult, that she was unprofessional, that she fired her agents one too many times, that she had health problems, that she was hard to work with. Every one of those things may even be partially true, but the same things are partially true of dozens of male actors whose careers did not collapse the way hers did. The same things were partially true of Ashton Kutcher, who was being investigated by punked segment producers for showing up late and unprepared, and his career did not collapse. Hers did. By 2008, she had been fired from The Caller, and the tabloids that had once put her on covers as the next Julia Roberts were running blind items about her behavior, her weight, her drug use, none of it sourced, all of it timed. Friends from that period have said she was paranoid. She thought she was being followed. She isolated herself. The people closest to her could not tell in those last 2 years whether her fear was real or whether something inside her had broken. We will never know, because she died before anyone bothered to ask. December 20th, 2009, 1895 Rising Glen Road, Hollywood Hills. Brittany Murphy collapses in her bathroom. Her mother Sharon dials 911.
Well, I think they knew that she was sick because she'd had this terrible laryngitis. And there was a period at about 3 o'clock in the morning, She was gasping for breath, and she actually said, "I think I'm going to die."
She had been sick for days. She had not gone to a hospital. The official cause of death released by the LA Coroner's Office in February of 2010 was pneumonia, iron deficiency anemia, and multiple drug intoxication from a list of over-the-counter and prescription medications. No illegal substances. The coroner ruled it accidental. 5 months later, in May 2010, Britney's husband Simon Monjack died in the same house. Same cause, pneumonia. Same coroner's office. Same official ruling, accidental. And here is the part that her father, Angelo Bertolotti, never accepted.
Well, it's very suspicious, and I read the reports on the toxicology reports, and everything sounds very, very, very more or less suspicious.
Angelo Bertolotti spent the rest of his life convinced his daughter had been poisoned. He commissioned independent testing on hair samples taken from Britney's body. He claimed in 2013 that the lab work showed elevated levels of heavy metals, including compounds consistent with rat poison, at levels he said were inconsistent with any natural illness. The Los Angeles coroner pushed back. The mainstream press largely treated him as a grieving father who couldn't accept the truth. He died in 2019 still saying his daughter was murdered. I want to be careful here. The independent lab results Bertolotti released were never accepted into any formal investigation. The coroner's office stood by its findings. There has never been a charge, a suspect, or a criminal case opened. What we have is a father who refused to stop, lab results he said came back wrong, and a 32-year-old actress who died of an illness that, in 2009, in a multi-million-dollar Hollywood Hills home, with health insurance and access, should not have killed her.
There when they said she didn't make it.
They let us know at the same time that she hadn't made it.
A mother describing the moment a doctor told her 32-year-old daughter was dead. A father who would carry the word murdered in his mouth for the rest of his life. A coroner's report that closed the case. And a Hollywood that moved on within a news cycle. Fast forward to 2023, 14 years after Britney died. Ashton Kutcher and his wife Mila Kunis, who he married in 2015, 3 years after the divorce from Demi, are at the center of a public firestorm. Danny Masterson, Kutcher's That 70s Show co-star, his close friend, the man he had described publicly for 2 decades as a brother, had just been convicted of forcibly raping 2 women. He was facing a sentencing range that could put him in prison for the rest of his life. Before the judge handed down that sentence, Kutcher and Kunis submitted private letters to the court. Those letters were leaked.
Fierce backlash today for Ashton Kutcher and wife Mila Kunis as they apologized for the character letter calling That 70s Show star Danny Masterson an outstanding role model and exceptional older brother figure with a caring nature.
Read those phrases again. Outstanding role model, exceptional older brother figure, caring nature, submitted to a judge about a man 2 juries had just convicted of violent rape after hearing the testimony of the women he had violated. The judge sentenced Masterson to 30 years to life anyway. The letters became public the next day. The internet detonated.
A couple months ago, Danny's family reached out to us and they asked us to write character letters to represent the person that we knew for 25 years. So that the judge could take that into full consideration relative to the sentencing.
The letters were not written to question the legitimacy of the judicial system or the validity of the jury's ruling.
They were intended for the judge to read, and we're sorry.
The apology was filmed in their kitchen. They sat side by side. They read from notes. They never used the names of the women Masterson had raped. They never explained why a man who had testified before Congress about protecting children from sexual exploitation, Kutcher's nonprofit Thorn was, at that point, his entire public identity, had written a letter asking a judge to go easy on a convicted serial rapist.
This video was incredibly insulting and hurtful. In my opinion, you're just as sick as your mentor.
That word, mentor, was the part nobody could walk back, because the public records showed that for 25 years, the man Hollywood had marketed as a wholesome prankster, the man who had built the most publicly visible anti-child exploitation nonprofit in the country, had described a man now convicted of rape as the role model who shaped him. And then citizen archivists started digging. And what they pulled out of the corners of the internet was, in some ways, worse.
She's one of the girls that we're all waiting for to turn 18.
That clip is real. It was filmed during Press for Cheaper by the dozen. The actress he was talking about was Hilary Duff. She was 15 years old when the film was made. He was 25. He said it on camera. The clip has been verified by every fact checker who's looked at it. It is not deepfaked. It is not edited. It is a man who would 20 years later run a children's anti-exploitation nonprofit, telling an interviewer he was waiting for a 15-year-old to turn legal. Through the 2000s, the same period when he was dating Brittany, then Demi, then marrying Demi, Ashton Kutcher was photographed at Sean Combs' parties. Not once, not occasionally, repeatedly, across the entire decade. Diddy's white parties in the Hamptons, his New York events, his Los Angeles after-parties. The two men existed comfortably in each other's circles, and there is a paper trail of red carpet photographs to prove it. In September 2024, a federal grand jury indicted Sean Combs on charges including racketeering conspiracy, by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. He was convicted at trial in 2025 on the prostitution-related counts. The trafficking and racketeering charges did not result in conviction. He is currently serving a federal prison sentence. The world he built, the parties Kutcher was photographed at, is now the subject of ongoing federal scrutiny and dozens of civil suits.
Diddy party stories, they're our favorite genre of anecdote. If you
really?
have one, yeah.
Wow, okay, I've got a lot I can't tell. So, can't tell that one either. I mean, I'm like actually cycling through them. Diddy party stories. Man, that was like some weird memory lane.
That is Ashton Kutcher, on camera in front of a host, voluntarily admitting that he has stories about Diddy's parties he cannot tell. He says it twice. Can't tell that one either. That is his own words, not a rumor, not a Survivor account. His own voice, his own face, his own admission that there are things he was witness to inside that world that he is not willing or able to put on the record. He has never been asked, in any interview I can find, to elaborate. He has never been subpoenaed. He has never been named in any of the civil filings against Combs that are public. But the line can't tell that one either is now, in retrospect, one of the most quietly damning sentences any Hollywood actor has spoken on camera in the last decade. And here is where the threads tighten, carefully, without overreach. Brittany Murphy died in December 2009 of pneumonia. Her husband Simon Monjack died 5 months later in the same house, also of pneumonia. Kim Porter, Diddy's longtime partner, the mother of his children, the woman who multiple sources have said was preparing to publish a memoir about her years inside his world, died in November 2018, also of pneumonia, also at relatively young age. All three deaths were processed at various points by the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office, where Lieutenant Ed Winter had been the public face of high-profile celebrity death rulings for years. Winter himself died in March 2023. I want to be honest with you about what those facts are and are not. They are not evidence of a coordinated cover-up. 3 pneumonia deaths in a single coroner's jurisdiction over a decade is statistically unremarkable on its own. The same coroner handling high-profile LA deaths is also unremarkable. That is functionally how the office works. But Kim Porter's reported memoir has never surfaced in published form. The people closest to her have said in interviews that she was working on it before she died, and that what she was preparing to put in it would have been damaging to powerful men. That memoir does not exist on any shelf. Brittany Murphy's father went to his grave saying his daughter had been silenced, and the Hollywood Hills bedroom where Brittany collapsed is 2 miles on the same hillside from houses where federal investigators are still going through evidence in the Combs case in 2026. That is not a conviction. That is not a charge. That is a pattern of unanswered questions that, in any other industry, would have been answered 15 years ago. Here is what we know. Demi Moore wrote a memoir in 2019 in which she described, in her own words, what life with Ashton Kutcher actually looked like. The targeted attack on her sobriety, the photograph used as humiliation, the threesomes weaponized as moral cover for cheating, the Google alert, the years of shame she has only now begun to name out loud. Every line of that is on the public record under her own name. Brittany Murphy dated the same man 5 years before Demi did. After their breakup, her career fell off a cliff that careers do not normally fall off. She spent her last years, by every account from people around her, isolated and afraid. She died in a bathroom at 32 of an illness that should not have killed her. Her father spent the rest of his life convinced she had been poisoned. He produced lab results. The coroner's office rejected them. He died still saying it. Ashton Kutcher wrote a character letter for a serial rapist and called him a role model. He said on camera in 2003 that he was waiting for a 15-year-old to turn 18. He spent 2 decades inside Sean Combs' social orbit and admitted on camera that he has stories from those parties he cannot tell. He built an anti-trafficking nonprofit and used the platform that nonprofit gave him to ask a judge to go easy on a man who had violated multiple women. None of those documented facts proves Ashton Kutcher harmed Brittany Murphy. To this day, no investigator, no coroner, no prosecutor has ever accused him of anything criminal. He has never been charged. He has never been named in a civil suit involving her death. He may have nothing to do with what happened to her at all. But here is the gap. The gap between who Ashton Kutcher told the world he was and who Demi Moore, under her own name in her own publisher's book, described him as. That gap is not small. And until Hollywood is willing to actually answer the questions that gap raises, the questions Brittany Murphy's father raised, the questions that hang over the parties Kutcher attended for 2 decades, that gap is going to keep widening. Demi Moore got out and lived to write the book. Brittany Murphy didn't. That is the only sentence in this video that no fact checker can dispute. No fact checker can dispute. No. Tell us what you think in the comments. Was Brittany Murphy just a tragic statistic in the Hollywood pipeline that consumed her? Or was she, like her father insisted until the day he died, silenced by something we are only now beginning to see in outline? Like, subscribe, and we'll keep pulling on the threads until somebody finally has to answer.